The wind bit at my face as I wandered aimlessly through Central Park that Christmas Eve. Tree lights twinkled in the distance, families smiled around steaming mugs, kids dressed as elves dashed through the snow. I was just another stranger amidst all that joy. I sat on a wooden bench, away from the bustle, staring at my gloved hands, trying to figure out how I'd ended up there. I could have chosen any fancy party or restaurant, but the thought of facing forced smiles made me nauseous. Isolation felt more comfortable than any gold tapestried room. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like for more stories like this. Then I felt a gentle tug on my coat. I looked down and saw a little girl with wide eyes and rosy cheeks. She was clutching a worn rag doll. She didn't seem intimidated, despite me being a stranger. Her sincerity was impossible to ignore. "Do you want to have dinner with us?" she asked, so direct and simple, no beating around the bush, just raw kindness. I was speechless for a moment, stunned by the casualness of the invitation. Most adults wouldn't even notice someone alone in a freezing park. She not only saw me, but invited me into her world. I followed Emily through the lit-up streets, each step a mix of strangeness and anticipation. The building was old. Stairs creaked on every floor. The apartment was small, but a sweet smell from the kitchen and small details showed care amidst the simplicity. Grace, Emily's mom, smiled as she opened the door. Her eyes were tired, but she welcomed me with open arms, simply because I'd come with her daughter. I never thought such a modest home could exude so much human warmth. I sat at the table, feeling a bit out of place, while Grace and Emily chatted about their day. Slowly, their laughter began to melt the ice of my discomfort. My visits to that apartment became routine. At first, I'd bring flowers or some expensive sweet, trying to repay their generosity, but I realized the true value was in the small details. I started doing the dishes after dinner, changed a hallway light bulb, fixed a wobbly chair. Emily would ask me to help her with drawings. Grace would laugh at my improvised cooking. These were simple, everyday habits, but for me, it was all new. I felt, for the first time, that no one here expected anything from me beyond who I already was. There were no demands, just companionship, and that feeling of quiet belonging I'd never experienced before. On one of those cold nights, Grace sat with me in the living room while Emily slept in the other bedroom. Her voice was firm, but held an old sadness. She told me she got pregnant too early. Emily's father left, and she had to manage on her own. She spoke about how her parents cut ties, the fear of not being able to cope, the nights of doubt. I listened to every word, feeling the weight and courage behind every choice she made. When she finished, I felt like telling my story too. I spoke of my family with mansions, trips, and super expensive, yet hopelessly cold dinners. Everything seemed perfect to others, but inside what I was, now beginning to understand, was missing. Connection, care, real affection. These conversations changed everything between us. Grace made me a scarf as a thank you for the repairs around the house. It was the most meaningful Christmas gift I'd ever received. With each new gesture, I felt more and more accepted. Emily drew a portrait of us and taped it to the fridge as if I were already part of their little universe. Over time, I stopped trying to impress or hide my vulnerabilities. I just wanted to be there, contribute, be useful. They showed me, with silent and genuine gestures, that affection doesn't depend on financial status or a last name. It's something built, day by day, with room for mistakes and new beginnings. Emily's birthday party had been planned for weeks. She talked about it every day, dreaming of chocolate cake and colorful balloons scattered around the living room. I found myself getting involved in every detail, helping Grace choose ingredients, testing recipes, assembling little party favors. Seeing Emily excited made everything lighter, and the anticipation was shared by all three of us. But then, days before her birthday, a call from the office changed everything. They asked me to fly to London urgently. It was an important negotiation, the kind of situation I'd normally throw myself into, no questions asked. But now it wasn't so simple. I remember seeing the disappointment in Emily's eyes when I told her about the trip. She tried to hide it, but the sadness overflowed in her silence. Grace, trying to be strong, said she understood, that work was important and Emily would be fine. But I knew the truth behind her words. My place was there, and any justification sounded small compared to what really mattered. I got on the plane with a huge weight in my chest, barely able to focus on messages, meetings, contracts. The image of Emily, sitting on the edge of her bed in her new dress, waiting for someone who might not return in time, wouldn't leave my head. In the middle of the London night, after the last meeting, I sat down and looked at my tickets. I could invent 1,000 excuses, but none would be enough for myself. I decided to go back. I missed connections, ran to the boarding gate, almost begged for a seat. I arrived in New York just hours before the party, exhausted, tense, but with the feeling of finally making the right choice. I rang the apartment doorbell, my heart pounding. When Grace opened the door, I saw a mix of surprise and relief in her eyes. Emily, seeing me, ran and hugged me so tight that all misunderstandings vanished in that instant. I'd never felt such sincere belonging. Everything else, the missed calls, the postponed commitments, the tiredness, ceased to matter. I had kept my promise. From that day on, everything changed. The small visits turned into daily cohabitation. I helped Grace with the household bills, started participating in Emily's school routine, and on Sundays, we'd take long walks in the park or have movie marathons on the couch. Over time, that small apartment, once just theirs, became our home. I began to realize how rare it is to build memories like this, sharing the simple things, dividing responsibilities, celebrating every small victory together. One night, returning from work, I found Grace teaching Emily how to sew a Halloween costume. Their laughter echoed through the house, and I realized I no longer missed anything I used to think was essential. The most surprising thing was noticing how small dates and daily routines can shape a family. There was no more formality. We shared anxieties and joys, made plans, discussed life, and even argued over silly things like what movie to watch or whether pizza should have pineapple or not. I was there, completely present, participating in their world, included even in their flaws. Emily once asked me to help her with her science fair project. Grace was dozing on the couch while we tried to figure out how to make a baking soda volcano work. It was nights like these that solidified each of our presences in the other's life. The routine changed naturally, almost imperceptibly. I started leaving clothes at their place, then a toothbrush, until before I knew it, I had a drawer with my name on the bedroom dresser. Grace began asking me about important decisions. Emily included me in her school drawings, and I felt that, finally, someone genuinely rooted for me at the end of the day. Professional success no longer shone compared to Emily's smile when she received a simple gift or Grace's silent hug after a difficult day. It wasn't about luxury or appearances, but about shelter, about coming home, about building a history together. Feeling part of something, truly, was a completely new experience. After a few months, I got up the courage to talk to Grace about the future. The apartment was getting small for the three of us. I suggested we look for a slightly bigger place, with more room for Emily to play, a kitchen where Grace could venture even more into her recipes, and maybe even a small balcony where we could watch the snow fall on cold days. Grace was hesitant at first, afraid of losing the cozy atmosphere of our beginning, but she agreed as soon as she realized that more space wouldn't change the essence of our family. We visited several apartments, weighing pros and cons, listening to Emily's wishes, until we found a place with large windows and a room just for her. We went together to choose furniture, painted walls, hung Emily's drawings on the fridge door. Every detail was built with care, so no one felt they were occupying someone else's space, but adding their presence. Moving homes was like solidifying our commitment to each other. The new apartment was more comfortable, with airy rooms, but it kept the same principles as the old one: simplicity, affection, and respect. We didn't want to lose the family atmosphere we had worked so hard to build. Grace and I spent afternoons organizing the bookshelf. Emily invented treasure hunts through the rooms. On weekends, we decided to open our home to close friends, hosting small parties with cake, homemade food, and lots of laughter. The neighbors started noticing our presence. Some brought pies, others just came to chat, and the idea of community that always sounded abstract to me suddenly took concrete form. The change of address was also an invitation to new experiences. I decided it was time to introduce Grace and Emily to my family. Nervousness took over, because family gatherings had always been surrounded by formality and pressure. but something inside me said it was important to try. I invited my parents to dinner at our new house, explaining to Grace that it would be a delicate moment, but that I wanted to face it head on, without hiding anything. She supported me, although I could see the apprehension in her eyes. Emily, curious, wanted to know everything about the grandparents she was about to meet. On the day of the get-together, I prepared dinner with Grace. The table was set simply, but every detail from the food to the flowers Emily picked was chosen with intention. When my parents arrived, I felt the tension hang in the air. My father, accustomed to silent, rigid gatherings, took a while to loosen up. My mother was more open, trying to talk to Emily, complimenting the house's decor. Grace remained cordial, responding politely, without forcing intimacy. I kept an eye on every gesture, looking for signs of acceptance or judgment. It wasn't easy, I admit. There were awkward silences, uncomfortable questions, but little by little, notes of kindness began to emerge. My father, awkwardly, helped serve dessert. My mother told stories from when I was a child, making Emily laugh. For the first time, I saw the possibility of rebuilding some kind of connection, however small, with my original family. The dinner ended better than I imagined. My parents thanked us, praised the food, and said they wanted to arrange another get-together. Grace smiled with relief. Emily said goodbye with tight hugs. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was a sincere new beginning. From then on, our interactions began to include this effort of rapprochement, of mutual acceptance. Grace respected my origins, I valued her roots, and Emily brought lightness to every situation. I realized that, no matter the size of the apartment or the last name on the door, true home is where there's room to embrace imperfections and celebrate differences without fear. Looking back at everything I've lived since that first cold night in the park, I see that the greatest gestures of love never came in luxurious packages or grand promises. They came in the form of a simple invitation, a hand extended, a bowl of soup shared on a random night. I learned that it takes willingness to start over, humility to listen, courage to change. Our family grew, gaining new colors and sounds. The bigger apartment didn't just provide comfort, but served as a daily reminder that affection multiplies when it finds safe ground. Every step I took, every choice, showed me that belonging is a daily construction, and that despite the stumbles, that's what makes life worth living. After that dinner with my parents, something shifted inside me. The feeling of strangeness that had accompanied me for so long gave way to an unprecedented calm. I started to see Grace and Emily as my foundation, something that finally made sense, and I realized it was time to build new traditions, celebrate, and create true memories. The routine in the new apartment began to take on a life of its own. Small celebrations with neighbors, board game nights, long meals where no one was in a hurry. And, little by little, weekends were marked by always open doors for friends, the smell of good food, and laughter echoing late into the night. Emily adapted quickly to the new house. She ran through the rooms, invented adventures in the hallway, and filled the windows with her handmade drawings. The space brought her freedom, and for the three of us, it brought unity. I was called upon for the silliest tasks, from assembling furniture to searching for lost stuffed animals. And it was there, amidst simple tasks and long conversations around the table, that I realized the daily togetherness I had longed for was becoming real. It wasn't just the good days that bound us. Sleepless nights, discussions about bills, or insecurities about decisions were also part of it. But every challenge faced side by side solidified our bond. In practice, we learned to be a family, to make concessions, to apologize, to celebrate small victories, and to offer comfort when everything felt too heavy. Grace, in turn, began to let her guard down. She started sharing work worries with me, dreams she'd held for years, plans for Emily's future. We began planning trips together, courses, even simple changes to the house decor. I listened to her past stories with new eyes. Now, I was part of that narrative too. Emily, curious and sensitive, always wanted to know more about how we met, about my childhood, and laughed at every silly detail of my stories. This shared life created a new sense of security for me. I no longer needed to prove anything, just to be present and build together. Over time, I realized the meaning of family had completely changed. It was no longer about a last name or tradition. It was about belonging, mutual acceptance and care in daily details. I finally understood that being together wasn't just about sharing space, but sharing time, dreams, fears, and joys. And it was in this environment of trust and care that I matured as a man, as a partner, and especially as a father to Emily. Even without an official bond on paper, that was my most important role. Christmas was approaching, and for the first time, I felt a genuine desire to celebrate. Grace suggested we have a party for the neighbors, something simple, but that could bring together those who were truly part of our daily lives. Emily was radiant with the idea. She helped set up the tree, hung her own ornaments, and prepared Christmas cards for each guest. We went shopping together, cooked new and traditional recipes, and spent the week decorating the house with colorful lights. It was impossible not to remember that cold Christmas in the park, but now the cold was replaced by a constant feeling of warmth. On Christmas Eve, our home became the stage for a true community celebration. Neighbors who had never been inside, Grace's childhood friends, my coworkers, everyone met in our living room, mixing stories, accents, and laughter. There was soft music, the smell of bread baking, and children running around. I sat in the armchair, observing it all, and my heart filled with gratitude. It wasn't luxury, there was no ostentation, and that's exactly what I liked. Emily came running, pulled me by the hand, and led me to the kitchen, whispering that she had something important to show me. Grace, with that knowing look of someone who understands everything without needing words, smiled and followed the girl. Among trays of sweets and forgotten glasses in the sink, I knelt beside Emily, curious to see what she had prepared. She handed me a colorful envelope with crooked letters that read, "Happy Christmas, Daddy." My heart almost stopped. I looked at Grace, who already had tears in her eyes, and in that instant, I knew what I needed to do. I asked for silence from everyone in the living room. The chatter died down, and with everyone watching, I walked over to Grace, held her hands, and without rehearsed speeches, told her I wanted to build not just this Christmas with her, but all the ones to come too. I spoke about everything she and Emily meant to me, about how in the midst of so much emptiness, I finally found meaning. I asked Grace to marry me right there, in front of our friends, our family, our improvised community. Grace cried with emotion. Emily jumped and screamed with joy. The noise turned into a party. Friends cheered. Neighbors hugged us. My mother cried on the other end of the phone. It was a simple moment, but I'd never felt so whole, so connected to everything around me. The snow fell slowly outside, but no one felt cold that night. All eyes had something in common. That certainty that, when affection is true, it warms any environment. After the proposal, the night continued lively. We laughed, danced, sang off-key Christmas songs. Emily went to bed late, clutching the rag doll that, a year ago, she introduced me to, unknowingly changing my life. Grace and I, holding hands, stayed awake, remembering everything we had overcome together. It wasn't just the beginning of a new chapter. It was the end of a cycle of loneliness, now replaced by real bonds, built day by day with respect and tenderness. The message of this story was never about grand miracles or instant transformations. What changed my life was a simple invitation from a child, a door that opened thanks to selfless kindness, and the courage to stay even when insecurity threatened to push me away. I realized that silent gestures, sharing dinner, listening to another, holding a hand in difficult moments, are more powerful than any inherited tradition. The value of a home is there, in the details that fill our days, in unhurried hugs, in the smile when you come home, in respecting differences, in words that build bridges. I finished this account looking at the family we've formed. Grace, always strong and sensitive. Emily, with her energy and sweetness, and me, finally home. I know the future still holds challenges, but now I'm not afraid. I discovered that I belong, that I can be happy, even without following the script expected of me, and that a simple question, asked by someone sincere, can change all destinies. It was just one dinner, but it was also the beginning of everything. Today, if someone asks me what family is, I answer without hesitation. It's those who truly see us, accept us as we are, and make everyday life the setting for a great love story. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like for more stories like this. And so, the snow falls again outside our window. Inside, the house is warm, full of voices, smells, and memories. The clock marks another Christmas together. Emily runs, Grace smiles. I take a deep breath and give thanks. It's not about parties or gifts. It's about the certainty that in this home, everything that matters fits into simple gestures, no matter what comes from outside. With them, I know I'll never be alone again.